viewers, how are we doing? Welcome back to the ACL TV. So today we're discussing something very important for writers, for creators. Now with the advances in AI use and the proliferation of so many generative AI softwares, writers and even creators use a whole lot of AI products to generate their content. Now, why this is not completely advisable, because you need to maintain your creativity as a creator. You should only use AI as an assistant. You shouldn't use it to generate the novel. But then, if you must generate output with AI, you need to learn what we call advanced prompt engineering. If you want to generate something that is authentic, something that is original, and something that is distinct. If you don't want to generate something that is generic, that you see everywhere, if you want something that is authentic and something that at the end of the day is impactful and also accurate, then you need to learn advanced prompt engineering. Now, what is advanced prompt engineering? Is the skillful design and structuring of prompts to get precise, high quality, and contextually relevant output. Look at the definition. The skillful use of prompts, the skillful design of prompts to get precise, one, high quality, one, and contextually relevant output. Precise, high quality, contextually relevant. You agree with me that when you just generate outputs from AI just by putting in a simple prompt, now what you get is not precise, it's not high quality, and sometimes it may not even be contextually relevant because AI is not human, so it may not understand the context unless you as a human gives it the context. So that's what advanced prompt engineering is all about, you being able to give AI contextual prompts so that you get a contextually relevant output. So let's look at the steps to do this, the steps that you need to apply to do this. Now, number one is what we call role assignment. Role assignment. Before ever you ask AI to do anything, you should give AI a role. You can say, okay, let me assume you want to generate a patient education article as a writer. So you can tell AI, considering that you are an expert medical writer with 10 years experience, and generate this patient education article using so and so information. So you will need a role, an advanced role for that matter. Say 10 years specialist medical writer. So that person must have been in the field for 10 years. So taking up this role, AI will be able to produce an output that actually defends that role. Or if you want AI to review an article, you can say you are a senior medical writer for a high impact factor journal. Now review this article for clarity, accuracy, and completeness. So again, you're giving AI a role. You're giving AI the role of a senior medical reviewer this time around. So that means AI enters into the clone of that role and reviews that article as a senior medical reviewer. So this is what we call role assignment. So this is how your prompt should start. Then the next one is what we call layered prompting. Now, instead of just saying generate a patient education article on this particular topic, you can first of all say generate an outline for a topic on the treatment of malaria. Then after that, we can now say generate the introduction, or even before the introduction, I say, okay, based on the outline we've generated, suggest sources, that's references that I can use to write this article. Then after that, you can now say generate the introduction using the sources you've already defined, you've already generated from the literature. Then after the introduction, you can enter the next section of the article, maybe the impact of malaria on women and children. You also say, based on the sources you've generated, can you write this section on the impacts of malaria on the health of women and children? So this is what we call layered prompting. Remember the first step, role assignment. Then this second step, layered prompting. Then let's go to the next step. This is the one we call context embedding. Remember we talked about having contextually relevant output. Now, context embedding is you as a human telling AI the context for that very output that you want. It's you telling AI, this is what I need. Okay, this is the background. These are the things that you should do. So how do we do that in writing? You can inform AI that this article is for so and so audience. It's meant for women, it's meant for children, it's meant for people who are assumed to be around the 8th grade. This is meant to educate the public in their own language. So when you provide that context, and if your article is limited to a particular part of the world, maybe Africa, you can inform AI that this article is meant to educate an African audience or an Asian audience. Now, when you do that, you are giving it a context so that you're able to produce an output that fits into that context. So remember where we started? We started with role assignments. Then we entered layer prompting, that's number 2. Now we are at context embedding. And these are all the components of advanced prompt engineering. So if you must generate an article or an output with AI, you need to follow these steps. Let's continue. Now, the first step is iterative refinement. Iterative refinement. Now, what does this mean? Now, when you've done the first 3 steps and you now have an output, you read through the output. In most instances, when you read through the output, you may find out that some things are missing and you may need some more information. Or maybe you have some questions to ask based on the output you've received. Now, iterative refinement is a form of feedback loop. Based on the output you've received, you ask further questions, you give further prompts so that the output will come out better. Remember, we talked about high quality output. That's what advanced prompt engineering is all about. So in order to refine the output, you give AI more prompts so that you get a better output. So that's iterative refinement. That's number 4. Then number 5 is prompt chaining. Remember, I mentioned layered prompts. That's number 2, layered prompts. Now, when you come to prompt chaining, it's when you combine multiple prompts and combine the first step, role assignment, context embedding together. You can layered prompting, you can combine all of them together. So you now have multiple prompts that you now chain together. That's what we call prompt chaining. So if you want to generate a completed flow, you can decide to do that. But that means you must have defined what each prompt is all about. You define the role, that's the prompt. You define the different sections you want to do layered prompting from. You define the context. Then you put all of them together as a prompt. That's what we call layered prompting. The next one is constraint setting. In medical writing, you usually write with guidelines. So the guidelines may state use 1,200 words. Don't go beyond 1,200 words. Use UK English and all those information you have in the guidelines. So when you talk about constraint settings, telling AI that this is what I want, this shouldn't be more than 1,200 words, or it shouldn't be more than 10,000 characters. You shouldn't use US English. Restrict it to UK English. Putting a constraint so that it knows actually what to put out for you. That's what we call constraint setting. Then the last one, which is the most important one, is meta prompting. What is meta prompting? You've generated an output, you've gone through the first 6 steps, you now have an output. We understand that AI can make mistakes. When you open ChatGPT, you see it's clearly written. So now what you want to do is to put the output back, throw it back to AI, and let it explain how it generated the output. So it's like throwing it back to AI to defend the output. That's what we call meta prompting. Asking AI to explain how it arrived at the output. So now this you can see from this advanced prompting that you have multiple layers, You have multiple checkpoints. The idea is that at the end of the day, you get an output that is not generic, you get an accurate article, you get a high quality article, you get an output that is contextually relevant and a precise article. So let's go through the steps once again. Can you join me? So number one is rule assignment. Rule assignment, you give AI a rule. Number two is layered prompting. So instead of giving one prompt, you decide to give multiple prompts, specific prompts. That's number two. Number three is context embedding. You provide the context for AI because AI is not human. You are the one that is human. Number four is iterative refinement. That's to give the AI based on the output you receive, you provide more prompts based on the output. That means you must have read the output. Number five is prompt chaining. This is where you combine multiple prompts based on the different checkpoints into one mega prompt. And now request for the output. Number six is constraint setting, where you provide the constraints like word limits, language to AI so that you get something that fits into the guideline. Then number seven, and the most important, is meta prompting. So the next time you want to generate an article or generate content with AI, make sure you go through all these steps. But most importantly, also remember that you are the boss. AI is just an assistant. So don't make it a habit to always generate content with AI. Try as much as possible to produce your first draft. But then, if you have to use AI to generate everything, then you have to use advanced prompt engineering.
Please subscribe.
I believe you've learned one thing or two from this episode. Is there any other thing that you feel that you want to learn from this channel? Then leave it as a comment in the comment section. I will see you again soon, where we'll discuss other aspects of writing and other aspects of health. Remember that this is the ACE Health TV, where medical writing meets public health, where medical writing meets health literacy. Our aim is to educate the public on health issues at the same time to equip health professionals with the skills needed for them to be proficient medical writers. See you soon.
Please subscribe.